ধরুন আমরা আসলাম এখানে এসে পরিবার পরিজন নিয়ে আসলাম এবং একদিন আমেরিকার নাগরিক বাংলাদেশে আমেরিকান হয়ে গেলাম, বাড়ি কিনলাম, সম্পত্তি কিনলাম, অনেক পরিশ্রম করে সম্পদের মালিক হলাম, কিন্তু একটা সময় তো আমাদের পৃথিবী থেকে সবাইকে যেতে হবে, তারপরে কি হবে?
সাধারণত যদি স্ত্রী এবং সন্তান থাকে বা স্বামী এবং সন্তানরা থাকে তখন তাদের মাধ্যমে এগুলো বন্টন করা হয়। উইলটা জরুরি, আবার যদি কোনো সময় না থাকে, যদি অন্য কোনো কেউ না থাকে, স্বামী স্ত্রী সন্তান থাকে, তাহলে এটা এই ক্ষেত্রে কোর্ট নির্ধারণ করবে কে কি পাবে। ধরেন কেউ মারা এখানে আসছে 20 বছর আগে, সে হয়তো মারা গেল, তার ফ্যামিলি এখানে আসতে পারে না, হি ইজ নবডি হিয়ার, সো হোয়াট হ্যাপেন্ড টু দিস প্রপার্টি, হোয়াট হ্যাপেন্ড টু হিজ ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্ট, and how do you solve this problem, or what is the losses? This was his question, what is the losses?
Sometimes, you know, we pass away, we don't share the information with our loved ones. Yes, they went back to their country, right? But the thing is that they probably have family there. When someone passes away, this is the court that distributes that property.
ধরুন আমরা আসলাম এখানে এসে পরিবার পরিজন নিয়ে আসলাম এবং একদিন আমেরিকার নাগরিক বাংলাদেশে আমেরিকান হয়ে গেলাম, বাড়ি কিনলাম, সম্পত্তি কিনলাম, অনেক পরিশ্রম করে সম্পদের মালিক হলাম, কিন্তু একটা সময় তো আমাদের পৃথিবী থেকে সবাইকে যেতে হবে, তারপরে কি হবে? আমাদের বাংলাদেশের আমাদের যে সম্পত্তি আইন যেটা আছে সেটা তো আমরা জানি, কিন্তু এখানে কি আছে সেটা আমরা অনেকেই জানি না। এবং আমরা সাধারণত এই অনুষ্ঠানে ইমিগ্রেশন নিয়ে অতিমাত্রায় বেশি কথা বলি, এই সম্পত্তি বা এই সমস্ত বিষয় নিয়ে একটু কম কথা বলি। আজকে সেই সুযোগটা পেয়েছি, সেই জন্য এই কথাটি বলতে চাই। এবং এই প্রশ্নটি আমি প্রথম দিয়ে শুরু করতে চাই আমাদের জাস্টিস ক্যাসেন্ড্রা জনসন। তো আপনাকে just I have some questions about surrogate court also. First question is when someone dies in America, who inherits his or her property and how will his or her property be distributed?
That's a good question.
Sure.
First, I want to say thank you for allowing me to come onto your show, because really you're educating the community, and especially about the surrogates court, which is a court that many people don't know about until you need to go there. So the surrogates court is a place where when someone passes away, the court is responsible for appointing someone to step into the shoes of the person who passed away. So of course, what you had asked about someone passing away without a will is really a different question than passing with the will. So if someone has a will, the law requires that, of course, the will be valid, and the court would appoint the person who is named as the executor, and then the person in the will indicates how they want their assets distributed and to who. If someone passes away without a will, we call that passing away intestate. And basically the court looks at the relationships that the person had at the time of their passing. So are they married? Do they have children? Are they survived by a parent? And the law requires that the court look at a snapshot of their lives at the time that they pass to determine who first is entitled to inherit. So if someone passes away, for example, with married and with children, the court would appoint the administrator of the state, and then the person entitled to inherit would be the spouse and the children. So it's an important question.
Thank you very much. তো সুপ্রিয় দর্শক, যে প্রশ্নটি করেছিলাম যে আমেরিকায় যদি কেউ মারা যায় তখন তার সম্পত্তির উত্তরাধিকারী কে বা কারা হবেন এবং তার বা তাদের সম্পত্তি কীভাবে বন্টন করা হবে, এই প্রশ্নটি ক্যাসেন্ড্রা জনসের কাছে আমি করেছিলাম। তো উনি ইংরেজিতে উত্তর দিয়েছেন। অনেক আইনি টার্ম আছে যেটি আমি মইন চৌধুরীকে বলবো যে এটা উনি যেটা বললেন একটু বাংলায় যদি ব্যাখ্যা করতেন।
ধন্যবাদ। ক্যাসেন্ড্রা জনসন যে কথাগুলো বলেছেন আসলে ভেরি ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। আমরা যারা আমেরিকায় আছি, যারাই আছেন না কেন, যারা যখনই তারা মারা যায় তখন তাদের সম্পত্তি কিভাবে বন্টন হয়, এবং নিয়ম হচ্ছে যদি প্রবেটের মাধ্যমে এগুলো করতে হয়, প্রবেট কোর্টে যাবে। অনেকে উইল করা যায়, অনেকে উইল করা থাকে না। উইল করা থাকলে তখন উইলে যে অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটর থাকে তার মাধ্যমে বন্টন হয়। উইল করা না থাকলে তখন জানতে হয় তার কে কে এখানে আছে। সাধারণত যদি স্ত্রী এবং সন্তান থাকে বা স্বামী এবং সন্তানরা থাকে তখন তাদের মাধ্যমে এগুলো বন্টন করা হয়। উইলটা জরুরি, আবার যদি কোনো সময় না থাকে, যদি অন্য কোনো কেউ না থাকে, স্বামী স্ত্রী সন্তান থাকে, তাহলে এটা এই ক্ষেত্রে কোর্ট নির্ধারণ করবে কে কি পাবে।
অনেক ধন্যবাদ সুপ্রিয় দর্শক, নিশ্চয়ই বুঝতে পারছেন ইংরেজি এবং বাংলা দুভাবেই আমরা আমাদের প্রশ্নটির উত্তর দিলাম, এবং সেক্ষেত্রে যদি আমি বা আপনি যে কেউ দুনিয়া থেকে চলে যাই তাহলে আমার রক্ষিত সম্পত্তির কে উত্তরাধিকারী হবেন সেটা নিশ্চয়ই বুঝতে পেরেছেন। ক্যাসেন্ড্রা জনস, তো আপনার নেক্সট কোশ্চেন ফর ইউ, how long does it take to distribute this property and what is the process?
So when someone comes to court, they'd be filing a petition, right? So they're filing a petition, as Moin Choudhury also said, for probate because there's a will, or administration because there is no will. The court now has to appoint someone to step into the shoes, which would be called the administrator or the executor. And that individual will be the person appointed to distribute the assets. And that can take some time because let's say if there is a house and the executor or administrator is required to sell the property so that the value of the property is distributed to the heirs, then it would take as long as it takes to actually sell the home. And so really when someone passes away, the court has to look at all of the assets that they have, what's named in the will, and determine who is entitled to receive them. If there's a business, the court may have to dissolve the business and value the business. So there's so many things that the court has to consider, and that the executor or administrator has to act on that person's behalf to distribute.
Thank you very much.
Let me ask her one question because you are a sitting judge. People will respect your word because we are the lawyers. Whatever you say, they have to verify. But when you say something, it's very important. So, question: is will mandatory if someone has only one house? Suppose somebody has Mr. X has one house and he has two children, two son and daughter, whatever it is. So is it will mandatory for him?
It's never mandatory.
Okay.
Right? So someone chooses to have a will because they want to appoint someone to act on their behalf. So first of all, you have an executor. Maybe they choose only one child to be the executor, right? And then they have the successor executor. But in those situations, people don't have to because what you're highlighting is that when someone passes away without a will and there are only two children, those two children would be the ones entitled to inherit. Now, what's different is that if you do a will, you can say that you want your friend to receive some of your property, or maybe you want your religious, organization or institution to receive some of your property. The will is what says what you would like to happen with your property, which may or may not be what is required under the law.
So another question comes right after this. So if someone plan to in a will he or she, মানে বাংলায় বলছে যদি কেউ ধরেন তার সম্পত্তির কিছু অংশ মসজিদে দিতে চায় বা চার্চে বা মন্দিরে দিতে চায়, if someone wants to distribute some of the property to church or a mosque or a temple, so if one of the the heirs who is a son or daughter, if they challenge, what happens?
Right. So if
then
there
go
is
to your court, right?
Right. So if there is a will and the will gives property to the religious institution, as was said, and perhaps the child is disinherited, then they would go through the probate process, but it would be a contested process. And so that may make things go a little longer because the court now has to evaluate the will, its validity. They have to determine who's now entitled to inherit, including the child that we're talking about, and determine whether or not the will is valid and that the wishes of that person who passed away should be followed.
Let me ask you what happens in the ethnic community. Because of the immigration issue, someone may came to this country 20 years ago. He was illegal. He was deported, but he purchased some properties. When he died, nobody is here for him. আমি যে প্রশ্নটা করতেছি, ধরেন কেউ মারা এখানে আসছে 20 বছর আগে, সে হয়তো মারা গেল, তার ফ্যামিলি এখানে আসতে পারে না. He has nobody here. So what happened to this property? What happened to his bank account? And how do you solve this problem? What is the losses? This was his question. What are the losses?
Right. So it's not something that I can necessarily solve.
Right.
It automatically goes to the state. So that's why there are these, it's called unclaimed funds, for example, where people can go to see how to get that back. Of course, if nobody ever shows up to retrieve it, that's where it goes.
That time you need will. That's persons need a will. Very important. Will and one administrator.
And also to share the information. Sometimes, you know, we pass away, we don't share the information with our loved ones. Yes, they went back to their country, right? But the thing is that they probably have family there.
Right.
And they should have told them, I have this property here, this is the address. And even if you don't say anything, write it down so that later on they can look for the property. Do you see? So sometimes we don't communicate with our family, and we need to do that.
Last question for you. Why is it so important?
Oh, it is so important. So first of all, we work hard for everything that we accumulate in our lifetime. And this is the court that decides where those assets go. So when we talk about generational wealth, when we talk about our homes, our businesses, when someone passes away, this is the court that distributes that property. They also deal with property with someone who needs a guardian, who's determined to be incapacitated either physically or mentally. And so when you have someone appointed for the property of that person, someone is appointed managing those person's assets. And so it is our wealth. They need to be protected by someone with integrity, who respects all people and treats people with dignity. And so we have to be mindful of this. And that's why I'm so happy that I get to be here, because you're educating all of your viewers on the importance of this court that many people don't know about.
থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। দর্শক কে আছে টেলিফোনে, দয়া করে নাম পরিচয় বলে আপনার প্রশ্নটি করুন।
রানা ভাই, আমি মুস্তাক চৌধুরী বলছিলাম, ক্যাপিটাল অ্যাডভাইজার ম্যাজিক ফেস্টিভ্যাল।
জি
জি, ভালো আছেন? আমার কোয়েশ্চেন হলো, I have a question to Justice Cassandra. There is Mustak Choudhury. I'm the managing principal for Capital Advisor. So I know we've been talking about wills and probate, but I think we missed the biggest side of another section, that's the trust. Because as you know, there's two types of trust that still can come into play when it comes to any type of inheritance, which is your revocable trust and irrevocable trust. And I know in the state of New York, those are still an active trust that comes into play, not just the act of will. So I'll be really happy if you can let our community knows about those sections as well, because in our community, people have the false belief or understanding that will is the only way to work it around, but there are other ways you can still protect your assets, protect your properties and everything that needs to go to your kids or to your heirs through trust, whether it's revocable trust or irrevocable trust. So if you can touch a little bit on that, because I think in the entire show we're missing that part than just talking about other stuff. So thank you so much, Justice.
অনেক ধন্যবাদ প্রিয় দর্শক আপনার প্রশ্নের জন্য। অ্যাটর্নি মোইন চৌধুরী আর জাস্টিস কাসান্ড্রা।
She can explain that. You can explain.
Yeah,
Trust is different.
It is different, and so that is when I was a practicing attorney. What I would do is look at what the goal is.
Right.
So what is the goal for this individual and their assets? Sometimes it is because they may want to qualify for Medicare later on, or
Medicaid.
Yeah, and shelter their assets. So the trust actually is able to name a beneficiary for the individual to receive later on. It can be revocable or irrevocable. There are supplemental needs trust as well. And so that's why I said sometimes it's important to look at the person as a whole, what all the assets are, and what is really the goal. As a judge, of course, I don't deal with advising people on which of these vehicles, which they really are vehicles for someone to choose. And so it's always important, as I always say, to consult with an attorney to determine whether or not to even have one that's revocable versus irrevocable. So
If it's irrevocable, you cannot get it back.
exactly.
Then it's gone from
That's
you. You wasted your whole life to accumulate asset, and then this is not yours anymore. You can get the benefit of it, but this is not yours anymore.
Right. I won't say waste, but I usually put it in the comparison of
right.
put it in a car,
and
then the car is driving now,
Car is
and you
driving.
can't have the car make a stop to you again.
So there's good and bad.
Right, and that's why.
I like your the way you said it has to it depends on your goal, what you
Right.
want. That's most important.
Exactly.
অনেক ধন্যবাদ প্রিয় দর্শক, আশা করি আপনার প্রশ্ন উত্তর পেয়েছেন এবং খুশি হয়েছেন।
Because people sneeze. Because not everyone washes their hands. Because kids touch a lot of things. Set a date to get your COVID shot and RSV if eligible. Because if you're wondering, should I get my COVID shot? Think about other people. Learn more at nj.gov/health/vaccines.
নিউ ইয়র্ক থেকে সম্প্রচারিত TVN 24 টেলিভিশন বিশ্বজুড়ে বাঙালির কণ্ঠস্বর।